know it's an emotional thing, and I know it sucks to hear, but where I'm coming from is it seems like something that you can't hide forever. You guys live in a small space, close quarters, you sleep in the same bed, you guys all talk, you guys all share things, you're an observant person for the most part, I assume. Outside of taking medications and going to sleep, it seems very difficult. A lot of grown adults can't hide an affair with somebody who doesn't live with them, let alone somebody who does live with them. So at a certain point, I do believe you became aware of what was going on.
No.
Straight out to high-profile lawyer Philip Dubé joining us out of L.A. Philip, question. Do you believe Jen Soto will turn on Stephan Sterns at trial and be a state's witness? Because she will be in for a searing cross-examination if she does.
I do, as a matter of fact. But I do think what could also happen is that she might take the fifth and they're going to appoint her counsel. So they won't be able to use her for either side. But let's assume hypothetically that they do decide to put her on and she wants to testify against Stephan. I think she would come off quite credibly, but then the jury might wonder, why are you being so cerebral? Why are you being so analytical about this? Why aren't you being visceral? Were you in on it? So it could actually be risky also for the prosecution by putting her on. She needs to have something substantive to say to point to his guilt as to the homicide and the sex offenses.
Interesting. So earlier, we heard Dr. Bethany say if Stephan Sterns, goes down, she goes down too. She's not charged with anything. So I don't see how that would happen. The only way she would, quote, go down is that she would lose credibility as a mom because the jury and others would see that this happened right under her nose.
And the only way she would ever be taken to stand if I were appointed to represent her as a witness is for her to take the fifth or to be guaranteed a complete grant of use and transactional immunity. Otherwise, even if she successfully helps the prosecution get Stephan, they could come after her next. So they have to give her some type of an incentive to testify against him because it's too risky.
Wow. You know what, Dubé? You're borderline scary. I wouldn't have even thought of that next step of insisting that she be granted immunity in exchange for testimony so there could never be charges against her. Okay, one step ahead of everybody else. Dr. Eric Eason, the big question tonight was this little girl who just turned 13, was Maddie pregnant? And I feel like I'm eating a dirt sandwich just saying those words. But the investigators brought that up in Jen Soto's interview. So, Dr. Eason, again, you stated you could tell pregnancy in a murder victim by urine that you would harvest during the autopsy or from vitreous, which is liquid surrounding the eye. If you then see she was pregnant, what do you do? Remove the fetus and determine the age?
Oh, well, it depends on how far along you are. If this was very early on in the pregnancy, there's really not going to be much there. There's just going to be some tissue that's considered what's called products of conception, but an actual fetus is not going to be there. Another option would be to take the actual uterus itself and look at it under the microscope. You can actually see an implantation site where the embryo implanted, but the further along in pregnancy that you get, you're actually going to have the fetus there and can run DNA testing and do an actual, like a second autopsy within an autopsy on that. I've done that before in a couple of cases.
Hannah McKenzie joining us, Fox 35 Orlando. The autopsy report has still not been released, has it?
No, that's the truth of it, Nancy. We are, waiting with bated breath to get that autopsy report. We do know the cause of death listed as strangulation, and we have reached out to the state attorney's office to find out if Maddie's body had been tested for the presence of pregnancy hormone. They got back to us and said that's an ongoing investigation and they weren't able to release those results or whether or not they'd even tested.
This entire line of interrogation and questioning that we are analyzing tonight comes from an interview with the mom, Jen Soto, where the investigator asks if Maddie was pregnant. We wait as justice unfolds.